There's a ghost haunting the Texas prairie. It's not the spirit of a person, but of a dream so colossal, so ambitious, it was meant to unlock the very secrets of the universe. Buried 200 feet beneath this forgotten landscape lies a man-made cavern, a pristine concrete tube stretching for miles in a perfect silent circle. This is not just an abandoned project. This is a tombstone for the most powerful machine humanity ever began to build. And on that tombstone is an epitaph that reads, $2 billion, 14 miles of tunnel, and one of the biggest scientific failures in American history. This is the story of the Superconducting Super Collider, the billion-dollar megaproject that America simply walked away from. The story begins not in the dust of Texas, but in the tense, high-stakes world of the Cold War. The year is 1982. America and the Soviet Union aren't just aiming missiles at each other. They're in a race for intellectual supremacy. The battlefield is science. Winning a Nobel Prize is as strategic as launching a spy satellite. In Europe, a consortium of nations had built CERN, a particle accelerator that was pushing the boundaries of physics. It was a symbol of European unity and scientific prowess. America, the nation that had put a man on the moon, was in danger of falling behind. And so, a group of the nation's most brilliant physicists proposed something audacious. They didn't just want to compete with CERN. They wanted to build a machine so powerful it would leave everyone else in the dust for a generation. They called it the Superconducting Super Collider, or SSC. The concept was both simple and mind-bendingly complex. They would build a massive underground ring, a 54-mile-long circular tunnel. Inside, they would use thousands of supercooled, superconducting magnets to accelerate two beams of protons in opposite directions to nearly the speed of light. Then, they would smash them into each other. The collision would be the most violent, energetic event ever created by humankind, briefly recreating the conditions just moments after the Big Bang. In that fleeting inferno, scientists hoped to find the one particle that held the universe together, the Higgs boson. They called it the God particle. Finding it wouldn't just mean a Nobel Prize, it would mean understanding the fundamental nature of existence. It was the holy grail of modern physics. The Reagan administration, eager to project American strength, loved the idea. It was big, bold, and unapologetically American. In 1987, President Reagan gave it the green light, calling it a new window onto the universe. A nationwide competition began to choose a site for this scientific marvel. States fell over each other, offering massive tax breaks and land deals. In the end, a small, unassuming town in Texas called Waxahachie won the grand prize. The flat, stable geology was perfect for digging, and Texas politicians had promised unwavering support. For Waxahachie, it was like winning the lottery. This wasn't just a construction project, it was the promise of a golden age. Thousands of high-paying jobs, a flood of the world's greatest minds, and a permanent place on the world map. The town's motto became, the Superconducting Super City. And so, the digging began. Giant tunnel-boring machines like mechanical sandworms were lowered into the earth. They chewed through the Texas clay and shale day and night, leaving behind a perfectly smooth 12-foot-wide concrete tunnel. Above ground, a campus of stunning, futuristic buildings rose from the plains. There was the Magnet Development Laboratory, a building the size of 2 football fields, designed to build the 10,000 magnets needed for the ring, each one a masterpiece of engineering. There was the LINIC building, a sleek, quarter-mile-long structure that would give the protons their initial push. Everything was state-of-the-art. No expense was spared. The project was a symbol of national pride, a cathedral to science being built in the heart of America. For the scientists who moved to Waxahachie from around the world, it was paradise. They were pioneers on the verge of the next great discovery. People like Roy Schwitters, the charismatic Harvard physicist chosen to lead the project, felt they were on a historic mission. They were building the machine that would change physics forever. The initial budget was estimated at around $4.4 billion. A steep price, but for a project of this magnitude, it seemed justifiable. The promise was immeasurable. But as the tunnels grew longer, a shadow was growing in the halls of Congress. The initial cost estimate of $4.4 billion was starting to look optimistic. The price tag for the superconducting magnets was higher than anticipated. The engineering challenges were more complex. By 1990, the official estimate had ballooned to $8.25 billion. Some congressmen started to get nervous. This was, after all, taxpayer money, and they started asking a very simple, very dangerous question. What is this thing actually for? It was a hard question to answer for a public accustomed to tangible results. The SSC wouldn't cure cancer. It wouldn't create a new energy source. It wouldn't build a better weapon. Its purpose was pure knowledge. It was designed to answer the most fundamental questions about our reality. How do you explain the value of that to a farmer in Iowa or a factory worker in Ohio? One physicist, trying to justify the cost to a skeptical senator, famously said the project would discover the mind of God. It was a poetic statement, but in the world of politics it sounded arrogant and wildly expensive. The project had powerful champions, but it was also making powerful enemies. Other scientists, in fields like medicine and space exploration, saw the SSC as a black hole, sucking up federal research funding that could be going to their own projects. The Cold War, the very justification for this grand scientific race, was ending. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Suddenly, the argument of beating the Russians felt hollow. The world had changed, and the SSC was starting to look like a relic of a bygone era. Back in Waxahachie, the work continued, oblivious to the political storm brewing in Washington. By 1993, $2 billion had been spent. 14 miles of the main ring tunnel were complete. The massive injector facilities were nearly finished. The project was over 20% done. It was a point of no return, or so they thought. The budget was now projected to exceed $11 billion. In Washington, a new administration under President Clinton was focused on fiscal responsibility and deficit reduction. The SSC, with its ever-climbing price tag, was a perfect target. The debate in Congress became brutal. Supporters argued that canceling the project now would be the ultimate waste. They had already spent $2 billion and dug miles of tunnel. To stop now would be to throw all that away and signal to the world that America no longer had the stomach for great endeavors. Opponents fired back. They called it a money sink, a Texas boondoggle. They argued it was better to cut their losses now than to pour billions more into a project whose costs were out of control and whose benefits were abstract. The final vote came on October 19, 1993. The scientists and engineers in Waxahachie watched the proceedings on C-SPAN with a sense of dread. Their entire world, the dream they had dedicated their lives to, hung in the balance. The debate went on for hours, and then the vote was called. By a margin of 282 to 143, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to kill the Superconducting Super Collider. The news hit Waxahachie like a physical blow. It was a death in the family. One day, there were 2,000 people working on the site, a bustling campus alive with the buzz of discovery. The next day, there were termination notices. Security guards appeared, locking the gates. The giant tunnel boring machines were pulled from the earth, disassembled, and sold for scrap. The state-of-the-art computers were carted away. Scientists who had moved their families across the world were told to pack their bags. The dream was over. The government spent another $1 billion just to shut the project down. They filled the access shafts with concrete and soil, sealing the pristine, empty tunnels forever. They sold off the land and the magnificent buildings for pennies on the dollar to a local chemical company. The superconducting supercity became a ghost town overnight. And what about the science? What about the God particle? For years, American physics languished. The center of the high-energy physics world shifted definitively to Europe, to CERN. It was there in 2012, almost 20 years after the SSC was canceled, that scientists using the Large Hadron Collider, a machine 3 times smaller and far less powerful than what the SSC was designed to be, finally discovered the Higgs boson. The scientists who made the discovery won the Nobel Prize. Many of them were Americans who had once hoped to make that same discovery in Texas. Today, The site is a strange, melancholy monument to what could have been. The main buildings still stand, repurposed for industrial use but eerily recognizable. The smaller, empty structures dot the landscape like ancient ruins. Local explorers and photographers sometimes sneak onto the property, capturing haunting images of the decay. They walk through empty hallways where Nobel laureates once planned the future of physics. They peer down sealed shafts that lead to miles of perfect, unused tunnels, a vast, silent testament to a buried ambition. There is no single villain in this story, no one person to blame. It was a perfect storm of soaring costs, shifting political priorities, and a failure to communicate the value of pure discovery. It's a story about the complex, often fraught relationship between science and politics. It raises a haunting question. How many other great leaps have we failed to make? Not because they were impossible, but because we lost our nerve. The legacy of the Superconducting Super Collider isn't just the $2 billion of taxpayer money buried in the Texas dirt. It's the unanswered questions, the discoveries that were never made. The generation of physicists who saw the nation's commitment to fundamental science crumble. Out on the Texas prairie, the wind blows across empty fields, whistling through the halls of the abandoned labs. It's a lonely sound. The sound of a future that almost happened. The sound of a giant sleeping beneath the earth. Thanks for watching. What do you think? Was canceling the SSC a necessary evil or one of America's greatest mistakes? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating stories that shape our world.